So let's have some fun. Dr. Kristine Hoover was one of my instructors, and a lot of the work I did in the class helped inform the content for this presentation. And I have to say, when I came to her with the idea of doing Keynote, I think you took about 14 seconds before you said, yeah, it might have been 15. I want to thank her so much for making this journey and being a part of this event with us. Dr. Hoover is a professor and chair of the Masters of Arts in Organizational Leadership program, which I am a member of right now, where she leads the Change Leadership concentration. Some of her past leadership positions included the director of the Gonzaga Center for the Study of Hate, chair of the Washington State Legislative Ethics Board, and trainer for the Society of Human Resources Management. She came from Bowling Green State University in Ohio to Gonzaga in 2009, drawn by its Catholic, Jesuit, and Humanistic mission. Under Dr. Hoover's directorship, the Gonzaga Center for the Study of Hate has continued to publish the Journal of Hate Studies, a peer-reviewed academic journal, and honored the legacy of Holocaust survivor Eva Lassman through the Take Action Against Hate and Student Research Awards. She's designed new courses at the freshman, senior, and graduate levels to support student understanding of why people hate and leadership to counter hate. Her most recent publications include Countering Hate, Leadership Cases of Nonviolent Action, which explores the leadership of ordinary people who have accomplished extraordinary things. And now she's here with us tonight. So please welcome to the stage, Dr. Kristine Hoover. Check.
All right, we'll give the computer a chance to wake up a little bit and give Shannon a chance to catch her breath. You know, I am so excited to be with you this evening. I'm so excited to be here, to be a part of Fishtrap. She wasn't exaggerating when she said it took no more than 14 seconds to say yes to be here. Now, I have to tell you, I really did not know what I was saying yes to when it came to driving Highway 3. That was an adventure. And I am incredibly grateful for a lot of things, including my husband, who was the driver for me this afternoon and got us here safely. But it was a beautiful, beautiful drive. You know, the road was plowed, there was no storm. And I genuinely, deeply believe that the people that are here this evening are the people that are supposed to be here. The conversation that we're supposed to have is the conversation that we're going to have. So whether the tech comes on or not, it'll be okay. We'll figure it out. And we're really going to do some great things this weekend. Maybe.
Anybody a PC? Are you a PC guy?
We're trying to think of jokes to leave the table.
It's a screen issue. It's not pulling the. Let's see if I did it. Well, if we get everybody up here, that would be great. Yeah.
So sometimes function after
Yeah. The single connection keeps turning off. So, sorry, guys, this was working and now it's not. This is why we do tech things. It's the weather.
This is why we hire Seth at our place.
There we go. We're good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
A friend told me I was delusional. I almost fell off my unicorn. I love it. Well, thank you for coming up on the stage, unicorn or not. So in our opportunity to come here and spend this weekend with you, we did have to take a little bit of extra time to pack some long underwear for the weather, but it was all good. I'm just really grateful to be with such a wonderful group of people here to open Fishtrap, Winter Fishtrap. And, you know, with a theme, can we talk? Because goodness knows there is so much to talk about today, except we just don't know how to do it, right? Sometimes it's just easier to be silent. Sometimes it's easier just to turn and look the other way. And somehow that doesn't help us make forward progress. Right? Not to our better selves, not to who we aspire to be. And so how do we find our way out of this? How do we be more intentional about the choices and the possibilities that exist and to extend invitation into those possibilities. That's what I'm hoping we might explore starting this evening and into the rest of the weekend. Now, Shannon and Mike put together that fabulous agenda tomorrow and Sunday. And when I was talking with Shannon, I already said that with the work that you do here speaks directly to my heart, but she asked me to open this event in a different way, to not do a typical keynote. So I want to let you know, this is not going to be a typical keynote. And I am going to ask you, as Shannon foreshadowed just a little bit, to be a little bit different this evening as well, right? So I'm going to name this our growth edge, that at some time you might be a little bit uncomfortable this evening. And so sometimes people name their cars. We're just going to name that feeling. We're going to give it an identity, a presence, and say, it's okay. It's a growth edge. That's all it is. It's a little bit of discomfort, but it's fine. But I promise you, everything we do tonight, legal, moral, and ethical, there will be no broken bones, right? Especially with the Fishtrap code of conduct of respect, welcome, participation, and accountability. So I think really it is about having some fun, right? It's about our figuring things out a little bit better. So my marching orders were to engage you in ways that might help prepare you for the great experiences that are to come. But my materials were not coordinated with any of your presenters tomorrow. So if things go sideways tonight, it's not their fault, right? It has nothing to do with them. It's all on me. I'm just going to own that. So as we get started here, I just want to be really, really clear. My hope this evening is to have us get greater clarity about three different things. We have choices when we talk with one another. We can choose to debate, we can choose to be in discussion, and we can choose to be in dialogue. And those are three very different ways to talk with one another. So my talk is about intention. Let's be intentional when we choose to engage with one another. Okay. What does it mean to be in debate? It means that you're going to win against your opponent. It's a contest. That's the purpose of debate. What does it mean to be in discussion? It means to come to agreement and maintain your relationship with one another. It's a very, very different way of talking with someone. And the third way, dialogue, is to open up space for collective possibilities. Three very different ways that we can talk with one another, and our hope today is to be intentional about experiencing those with the wisdom not only of what you hear in your ears, but what you might feel in your bodies and what might you know in your whole self, your whole system, your whole sense of wisdom of what does it mean to be in debate, to be in discussion, and to be in dialogue. So all you need to be prepared for this evening is a sense of curiosity, a pinch of humility, and a notebook and a pen, which I think Fishtrap has provided to you. So yes, if you have your notebook and your pen, it'll be handy for you. And maybe, is there anybody who needs a moment just to grab? Can we make sure people have notebooks and pens? Everybody got something? Okay, wonderful. All right. You guys are all prepared. You've got this. So as we get started, when we think about bringing our whole selves into the room, when we think about welcoming Fishtrap and the start of this wonderful weekend, I'm going to ask you to begin by using something called a four-box breathing method, excuse me. And the four-box breathing method, it's an invitation for us to just collectively breathe together, right? To breathe in for 4 counts, to hold our breath for 4 counts, to breathe out for 4 counts, and to hold our breath for 4 counts. So a box, 4, 4, 4, 4, like the 4 sides of a box. And we're going to do that for 4 cycles, so 4 times. So I'm going to ask you to breathe in through your nose while I count to 4. I'm going to ask you to hold your breath for 4 counts, breathe out through your mouth for 4 counts, to hold for 4 counts, and then to do it again, right, for 4 times altogether, just so that we can have that common kind of calming experience as we start this weekend. So if you would, breathe in through your nose, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your mouth, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and last time, in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Welcome. It's great to see you. So that is actually an exercise that's used by Navy SEALs. It's simple, it's powerful. Everyone can use it anywhere at any time. Sometimes people use it multiple times during the day, just to pause, right? To kind of clean the palate and to think more clearly. So as we get started, the first type of talking that I'd like to talk about is this idea of debate, right? So my time with you is called dialogue, intention, and invitation. So spoiler alert, we're not going to be doing dialogue tonight because that's what tomorrow is about, all different kinds of dialogue. What we're going to be doing is, again, clarifying the distinction between debate and discussion and dialogue, right? Getting clear so that we can be intentional about our choices. So I'm going to define and then ask you to participate in a mini debate this evening, right? Just with a partner, but to role play, right? To have a little bit of fun. Then we'll have a second role play challenge and we'll have a discussion with a partner and just to practice kind of these skills and what it feels like to see what that's all about. So, excuse me, finally, we're going to close then with just a final challenge. So there'll just be 3 challenges. The third challenge is just kind of an individual experience. You might leave with a lot of questions for what dialogue is, but those are for your presenters tomorrow, right? So you can say, how do we do dialogue? That'll be your experience in all of your sessions. But tonight we're going to start with this idea about debate, being intentional about debate and what that is. So oftentimes it's formal, it's structured, it's public. We can think about the presidential debates that have been going on. We can think about high school debates, high school debate teams. We can think about debates that we have with neighbors, debates that parents have, right? Any number of different scenarios when we think about debate. So in a debate, there is a contest, there's a competition, right? There are winners and there are losers, and winning is the goal, right? Make no mistake, I am right, and I'm going to advocate for my position in a debate. And so in that advocating for a position, there's this determined, invested, kind of wholehearted commitment to a particular position, right? And there's an argument against why the other person is wrong, right? And so there is a way that we enter into debate that we're probably familiar with, right? We can imagine debate pretty easily, I think. So if you take a moment just to imagine a recent debate about a topic that might be near and dear to your heart, instead of a trophy up here, I could have used a set of boxing gloves when we think about debate, but I just wanted to, kind of use an image that was a little bit less violent. So when we think about winning here, let's move from imagination to invitation. I want to invite you into this experience of a debate just to briefly live into a role play, right? To have some fun, to accept a challenge. Now, many of you here may be conflict avoidant. My husband is, right? So I get it. He's right here with you. And yeah, he's hiding in the background.
I know what's coming.
He's already seen this talk. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is to consider for 10 minutes the possibility of what it could mean just to practice this idea of debate. It's not about your particular position, it's about a role play and feeling what debate means. I think this is really important for us to get clear because we have such gut reactions when we get into moments that are difficult for us that we need to be more prepared and thoughtful about what our choices are between debate, discussion, and dialogue. So just for 10 minutes, I promise, no more than that, I'm going to invite you into this role play in a partner scenario, right? It's just you and another person in the room. So if you would choose a partner, pick someone next to you, and introduce yourself, right? So anybody who's next to you, we just need to have a pair. It's okay. You can choose your debate partner. It can be someone who you know or someone who you don't know. It's absolutely fine. Again, this is a role play challenge to have some fun. So in this process, I'm going to ask you to see whose name. So you've introduced yourselves to one another, right? You've introduced your names to one another. And together, I'd like you to pick out one of the statements that's up here on the screen that you're going to debate. Okay? There are going to be 3 statements up here. So I invite you to select one of these statements. Any one of these statements would be fine.
Does everybody have a partner? Who doesn't have a partner?
Who needs a partner? Good call. Thank you. Can we partner up with the 2 of you, please? Would that be okay? And who else needs a partner? Do we have any threesomes that want to give to them?
One and one is for and one is against.
We have, everyone's got a pair. Okay. So with your partner, have you identified a statement that you'd like to focus on just for 10 minutes? One of these 3 statements.
So that's.
Okay. If you have identified one of these statements, I'd like to ask you to maybe make a note in your notebook of the statement that you're going to focus on. Just write it down so that you can keep it in mind. No, so right now, all you do is select a statement and write it down. That's the first, that's all you're doing is select a statement and write it down. So just select a statement and write it down. That's the only step so far. No, this is not just an all-out brawl. There's a little bit of guidance. Okay. If you happen to have a phone with you, you could take a picture of it, but just in some way capture the essence of the statement that's being made here. One of you is going to argue for the statement. The other one of you is going to argue against the statement. And I'm going to suggest that you're going to be assigned roles. You don't get to choose. Okay? Because it's a role play. This isn't about your personal position. It's about the experience of the debate. So everybody has the statement written down that they're going to focus on. All right. So you know what your names are, and you know that the alphabet doesn't change. So you know whose name comes first in the alphabet. So whoever's name comes first in the alphabet, you are going to support that statement. Whose ever name comes second. Okay. Now, before you get started, I'm going to tell you when to start. So our debate has not started yet. So in this process, you have a person who's going to support the statement, their name comes first in the alphabet. And you have a person who is going to argue against the statement. They believe in the opposite of what's written. So someone who's affirmative and someone who's negative. Do you know which partner is which? All right. So in this process, person one is going to have 2 minutes. Now, everybody is going to get first 2 minutes to gather their thoughts together. We're going to have a period of silence to prepare. And then person one is going to have 2 minutes to make their argument, why they believe that statement should be upheld, the affirmation of the statement. You have 2 minutes. Then person two is going to say, that's all wrong. Here are all the weaknesses in that argument. Right? That's the cross-examination or the counter argument. Person two gets 2 minutes to do that. Person two gets to go a second 2 minutes and then uphold their position about why the opposite, the negative statement, is a better position. They're going to make the argument for their position. And then person one comes back at the end for 2 minutes to counter argue and close the argument. Okay, so everyone will speak twice. If you can see over here at the bottom on the left-hand side of the slide, we'll have 2 minutes to think and gather our thoughts, to prepare one, the argument for our position, and two, the counter argument or the weaknesses in the other person's position. Okay, so each person only has to speak for 4 minutes total. It's only with your partner. And once we start this process, there are timers up here for you to watch how we're moving through it. If you can see the yellow bars are going to slowly move to the left as we move through the process. So you can, the timers, I will help with the timing, but you'll also visually be able to see what step we're on in the process. So 2 minutes will seem long and it will seem very short all at the same time.
Hey guys, can I ask a favor? We've got folks on Zoom who can't hear when you're talking amongst yourselves, so wait till she lets you go. Thank you.
So I really appreciate the excitement and the energy in the room. But first, we're gonna start with just 2 minutes of kind of preparation, right? 2 minutes to gather your thoughts about how you feel about the position, okay? So, are we ready?
You're gonna go back to those 3 again?
Do you want to see the statements one more time? Sure, absolutely. Here are the statements just to make sure you are either, if your name comes first, you are agreeing with this statement. If your name comes second, you are disagreeing with this statement. You hold the opposite view of the statement. So get your clarity about your position. We need 2 minutes now to get started. And the process is just going to roll for 10 minutes, and I'm going to give you the 2 minute markers as we transition each step. So your 2 minutes to kind of gather your thoughts is started. First person, you get 2 minutes to make an argument to support your position. So, person one, wrapping up your argument. Person two, you're going to get ready to counter argue. So, person two, right now, you are arguing about what's wrong with their arguments. You are wrapping up, having shot holes in the first person's argument and told them they are all wrong. And now, person two, you are going to launch into why you are right. Person two is going to continue. And now we're moving to person one. This is the last part of the debate. Person one, you get to argue about all of the things that are wrong with what you just heard. And we're wrapping up. All right. All right, all right, all right. I love the energy in the room. I love that you want to keep going. I love that you're still smiling with each other. You know, it may be cold outside, but I think it might be heating up in here. I just want to pause for a second, and I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause. I mean, that was really awesome. You guys play so nicely together. I really appreciate your willingness to jump into this challenge in something that was uncomfortable, right? In Spokane, we call our culture Spokane nice. We don't like to do things that aren't nice, and debate sometimes isn't really nice. So thank you. Thank you for being willing to play in that challenge. So before we go any further, I want you to take your notepad and I want you to write down just for 2 minutes here what that experience was like for you. Like, how did it feel? Was it awkward? Was it painful? Was it, how does your body feel in debate? Whatever comes up for you, what do you notice about yourself? And these are your personal notes. These are not to share with anyone else, but just to document this in the moment. Okay. So hopefully you had a chance to capture just a few of the immediate reactions you had to that. So before we think about what, if that was debate, before we think about a definition of discussion, right? Just to be really clear about terminology, let's kind of cleanse the palate a little bit and do another breathing exercise, right? Get grounded again, but this time it's a 4-7-8 exercise that I'd like to participate in. In this exercise, it's another breathing, it's more breathing work, but it's breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 7 seconds, and then a slow exhale for 8 seconds. Okay, so we'll just do that one 3 times. Okay, so breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Whew. There was a lot of energy in the room. All right, so let's see what happens when we switch gears and we think about this concept called discussion. In discussion, maybe in discussion. There we go. When we switch gears and talk about discussion as a way of talking, what we're trying to do is to contribute to the formation of community, right? To connection and how we reach agreement together. That's the purpose of a discussion, is to reach an agreement, but to do so in a way when we stay in community. Very concerned about whether we still like each other or not in a discussion, right? And so we engage with persuasive processes, we share information, but again, for the purpose of our coming to this common conclusion, what our policy will be, what our practice will be, what our norms will be. And so that twofold goal is really important, right? To find answers to a particular topic and to maintain the relationship. Now, by this definition of discussion, it's different than a conversation. we can have a conversation. We can chat, we connect, we can talk about a whole broad range of things. That's a conversation. But by the definition that I'd like to consider this evening, the purpose of discussion is to come to an agreement, right? We're having a meeting, we're having a discussion, and we're going to decide something. We're going to come to a decision. We're going to come to an agreement, and we're going to maintain our relationship. You can see that it's probably going to feel a whole lot different than what a debate would feel, right? Versus I'm going to beat you.
What if you start with a negative relationship?
Ah.
You maintain that relationship in a conversation pretty well.
So in a discussion, I love this. In a discussion, the example you're providing is we don't like each other. We're not in community.
Well, you can be in a community and not like someone.
Yes, yeah. Do we?
And that can be a defining element of your relationship with, I don't think it's a good one. But I think that it is a entrenched viewpoint that a lot of people have.
So a discussion may not deal with the reality and the depth of that type of feeling. A discussion deals with, we have a decision to make, and we're going to walk away without blood and bruises. By this definition of discussion. Now, we're not going to be friends. We're not going to be buddies. We're not going to be close. We're going to come to a common agreement, and we're going to persuade each other to whatever that solution will be. How's that work?
Okay.
We may still be at arm's length with one another, but we're going to agree to live by the rule that, you know, curfew is at 9 o'clock at night. I don't know, whatever the rule may be. Good question. Yeah.
So in the setup here, the debate means that there is potentially, I guess, a coming together, but probably not. In this, the topic has to be one on which there is an agreement at the beginning, that there will be an agreement at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the purpose.
Yeah.
The purpose for our entering into the discussion is that we're going to walk out of here with a decision.
Okay.
But in a debate, I'm simply going to beat you.
Yeah. Got it.
You know, there are people who play for the University of Washington, and there are people who play for the University of Michigan. So when we think about this, there is an avoidance of conflict in most discussions because there's this concern that we're just kind of working at follow the rules and get to an agreement. Don't mess with all the messy stuff, right? Not the emotion, not the conflict, right? And so silence in a discussion can be really awkward, right? It can be this space where, because we're concerned with liking, it doesn't feel okay, right? It has a negative association to it. So sometimes we're often in a discussion filling the space of silence because there must be something wrong. So let's just keep talking, right? So a discussion has a really good purpose to it, right? It comes to a decision. We come to an agreement about how we're going to be. So we're going to practice that. I'm going to ask you to find either the same partner or a new partner, whichever you like. But to, again, find a partner and to introduce yourselves one more time. Okay, we're going to see what discussion feels like in contrast to debate. So all you need to do right now is find a partner. Okay, so now, does everybody have a partner? Is there anyone who would like to have a partner? Would you like to have a partner? Yeah, all right. All right, so we're gonna go through this in a little bit of a step-by-step process, but I promise if you came through debate, that was much more complicated. This is gonna be a lot easier. So in your pair, I'm going to show you 3 statements again, and in your pair, select which statement you would like to focus on. Okay?
Who doesn't have a partner?
Who needs a partner? Does anybody need a partner? Thanks for the process check.
Yeah.
What? All right, here are our three statements. So select a statement and either make notes of it or take a picture of it. I'm glad to read it for you. Let me do that. Sorry about that. So the first statement is that subsidized affordable housing is the most cost-effective strategy for reducing childhood poverty and increasing economic mobility. Okay, I'm going to read the first statement again. Subsidized affordable housing is the most cost-effective strategy for reducing childhood poverty and increasing economic mobility. That's statement one. Statement two. Added regulation to protect coho salmon is unnecessary and would further restrict the practice of forestry in Oregon. Okay, I'll read it one more time. Added regulation to protect coho salmon is unnecessary and would further restrict the practice of forestry in Oregon. And here's the third statement. More legislation is needed to reduce greenhouse gas, enhance public welfare, and accelerate the transition from fossil fuel to lower carbon energy sources.
So that's a different statement, right?
That's
It's the Oregon climate.
Ah,
Yeah, Oregon climate.
yeah, sorry. It's just legislation will reduce. So yeah, please, it was brought to my attention, I shouldn't use the specific legislation. So just think legislation will reduce greenhouse gases, enhance public welfare, and accelerate the transition from fossil fuels to lower carbon energy sources. Just legislation in general. So you can pick any one of those three to have a discussion about, to come to an agreement on. Okay? 30 seconds. All right, so do you have your statements? All you need is your statement right now. You have your statements?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's how we're going to get started with a discussion. Okay? Figure out whose birthday comes next. Whoever's birthday comes next, you're going to support that statement. That's the position in this role play that you have. You agree, your position is that you agree with that statement. If your birthday comes second, you disagree with the statement that you selected. So you have two different positions for your statement, somebody who agrees and somebody who disagrees.
But I disagreed last time and I found.
Now, if you'd like to do it differently in your pair, that's up to you. Those are the guidelines, just the general guidelines.
Can we read our statement again?
Yeah, so now that you know which position you have, right? We're gonna go back to the statements for you to reread your statement. You know that you are either for or against the statement you selected. If your birthday comes first, you are for the statement. If your birthday comes second, you are against the statement. And remember, it's a role play. Regardless of whatever your personal position is, what we're trying to focus on here is what this feels like to be in discussion versus being in debate. All right. Got clarity on what your position is, your statement and your position. In a discussion, what we're going to do is work towards contributing to that sense of community, that sense of collective understanding about how the two of you, in this case, are going to move forward, right? So you're engaging the other person with persuasion, with information, but your fundamental goal is that when we finish this exercise, you'll find an answer, you'll come to a solution and still like the still be in relationship with the person you're in discussion with. So just as before, I really want to give you some time to gather your thoughts about your position. So you'll have 2 minutes, and again, the bar is going to move to the left side or to the side of the slide. So you can take some time to gather your thoughts about your position, since this is a role play. And then you'll have 8 minutes to have a discussion. Okay? So as you wrap up your thoughts, a discussion is far less structured. It's a discussion. So how can you come to a solution? An agreement somehow between the two of you and still remain in relationship? Okay? Go ahead. Awesome. All right, so let's, number one, just start with appreciation. Thank you for engaging in that exercise, right? Another round of applause. Good job. Again, no ambulances. I don't hear them coming. So I don't see any blood. So all good so far. Still moral, legal, ethical. We're doing okay. And right now, before we do anything else, take a moment to write down in your notebook, what does that exercise feel like to you? What does it feel in your body? What does it feel in your emotions? What are your thoughts? And maybe what's similar or different from the debate? Just capture that in a moment. Your personal notes, not to be shared with anybody else. One of the reasons why I've asked us to kind of do a breathing exercise between each of these different ways of talking is that when we communicate, it is our words, it is our tone, it is the speed, it is the motion. We communicate as a whole being in our bodies. Our bodies are communicating so much of that message with our ease, with our tension, with our leaning in, with our eye contact, all of that. But sometimes we just kind of think of ourselves as a checkup from the neck up, right? There are these words and cognitions and thoughts that are coming out of our mouths without realizing the fullness of what we're bringing into the communication. And so for our last breathing exercise, I'd like us to try something called a psychological sigh. Psychological sigh has been established it's been researched for decades. The process is to breathe in through your nose to fill your lungs. And when your lungs feel full, to just take a sip of extra air and then a big exhale, right? And so we're just going to do this twice. Okay? This is our last breathing exercise, right? Just to be really remember that we are whole beings here, all of ourselves. So to breathe in as much as you can, and then take this little sip and big exhale. Right, one more time, breathe in, and little sip, and it's really cold when you have tough when you have a cold and a cough. I am so with you. All right. That was our last role play challenge, right? Debate, and then discussion. And now what I want to share with you is a conversation about dialogue, right? So dialogue, very distinct from debate, very distinct from discussion, has a very different purpose, okay? I happen to like starting with this quote by David Bohm, who's one of the kind of foundational researchers in the area of dialogue, that the free of exchange of ideas and information is fundamental for the relevance of transforming culture. When we think about how our culture is today, how divided we are, how difficult it is to talk with one another sometimes, right? That we need to find a different way to engage with one another, because what we're doing isn't working so well. It's not giving us all of the answers that we need anyway. And so when you think about dialogue, if we think about dialogue's purpose, try on the phrase, it's about thinking together, right? It's about being aware of how our thinking emerges and moves and flows maybe like the flow of the river as ideas begin to emerge from our coming together in this process, right? So dialogue is exceptionally different. This is the idea of being intentional about the distinctions between debate, discussion, and dialogue. Because we agree that there's not going to be a group level decision in a dialogue. So significantly different from what we just did in discussion. The purpose of dialogue is not to come to consensus. And we agree that each of us engaging in dialogue is going to suspend judgment. I am going to be here present to hear your position. I'm not going to judge it. I'm going to be here with the purpose of understanding you. When I think about what is dialogue, I ask the question of myself, am I coming to know and understand you better? That's my check-in. How am I doing with my dialogue work? Am I coming to understand you better? If I am, I'm on track. But if I'm thinking about my argument, I'm off track. If I'm thinking about, wait a minute, what decision are we going to make? I'm off track. My check-in is to say, am I coming to understand and know you better? So each individual agrees to be as honest and transparent as possible. So instead of being worried about being nice, I mean, Spokane nice is a good thing, I guess, kind of, maybe. Oh. But unless I can bring my whole self to the conversation and I can respect and invite the other person to bring their whole self to the conversation, to say, this is how this lands on me, to say, this is how this makes me feel, then we can't truly bring a space that will open up new possibilities. Because what dialogue does is it allows us to listen with the ear of our heart, as Parker Palmer would put it. It allows us to be open without judgment so that new possibilities can emerge. And that's really tough because we've got time pressures, because we're just not trained to do this well. Although the concept of dialogue that David Bohm has introduced is decades old, it's not a skill that we hone and we practice on a regular basis anyway, not very common. So the solutions to today's challenges are only as good as the alternatives that we consider, and debate and discussion, they limit our ability to think of innovative alternatives. And that's where dialogue comes in, that we can think together about new possibilities. The rest of the quote that's not up there is that the free of exchange of ideas and information is of fundamental relevance for transforming culture and freeing it of destructive misinformation so that creativity can be liberated. That if I can pause and be present so that I'm trying to learn and understand more about your position, it will open and broaden my understanding of my own position. And watching that inquiry into the movement of our thoughts together is this concept that may make sense to you if we think about the monkey bars on a playground, right? Do you remember a playground where you would swing from handle to handle? But in order to move forward, it involved letting go of something too. You had to let go with your backhand in order to reach to your front hand, right? So in dialogue, how do I suspend my judgment? How do I not think about my position in this is, but rather to pay full attention and to release the blocks that my own thinking can prevent me from listening to the other person's position. So we really do want to invite the difference of opinion and experiences into the dialogue, because dialogue is really powerful when dialogue provides a really powerful alternative, particularly when we get locked into our own positions. I know what's right. I understand the world, except I understand it from my perspective, and I only have my limited human perspective. So how can I work to understand the other? There may be lots of different ways to talk. We're not going to practice dialogue tonight. I just want to let you know, I know we're getting close to the bottom of the hour. You will have a chance to practice this in many of its forms tomorrow. Dialogue is often practiced in organizations. Parker Palmer would call these circles of trust. Peter Senge would call it learning organizations that practice this as a way of getting to greater innovation. Peggy Holman would call this a way of creating democracy. But this is how we engage with one another to come to a place of innovation. So tomorrow you'll be practicing these different kinds of dialogue. And I hope that what you're able to do is be very clear that there is a strong distinction between debate, where we are trying to win a competition over the opposing position, a discussion where we're trying to maintain relationships but come to an agreement, and a dialogue, very different from the others, where we are trying to open ourselves to new possibilities. Right? There is the saying, the definition of insanity is doing things over and over again and hoping for different results. And so what I hope we can do is to practice new ways of engaging with one another as we think about the possibilities of how we build that future. When we think about how to change our culture, it happens one conversation at a time, and we have the choice to choose powerful conversations to create the future that we aspire to. So I hope that you'll be intentional about these different, oh, yes, sir.
I don't think that we individually have the power to choose conversation because it's two people. How do these models work when one person approaches a subject or conversation using one of the methods, and the other person approaches using a different one?
Beautiful. So particularly for dialogue, it is by invitation. So you cannot command somebody to engage in a dialogue. You can invite them into that space. And you can choose to, if the other person should choose to want to debate, you can say, I appreciate that you'd like to engage in a debate. I'm not ready to engage in a debate, or I'm not interested in engaging in a debate, but I'd really like to have a discussion with you if that's appropriate for that moment. I'd really like to maybe just have a dialogue with you, or just enter into conversation at first. But it is a mutual agreement of saying where your boundaries are and what you're willing to extend. This is what I'm willing to do, and this is what I'm not willing to do. And I myself would encourage someone to say, I'm not willing to enter into dialogue. I'm just not in the space where I want to listen to you right now. I'm not in a space where I can be present and accept and want to learn and understand more about you. That's not genuine dialogue if they're not ready for it. And I think that's a really good acceptable answer. But I also think it's really good for us to practice to be able to extend that invitation. And am I doing my own work so that I'm ready to extend that invitation? And can I model it so that other people can see what that might look like so they have a broader range of choices? I really love the question. Yeah, is that?
Thank you for discussing that.
Yes, sir.
The other thing that I was thinking about, maybe related, is it assumes rules,
Mm.
right? If we're gonna do this, here are the rules. And sometimes people don't wanna play by the rules.
So can you expand just a little bit more before I go off in left field?
I was just thinking about, the conversation for discussion. If people don't understand the rules are, and at a common decision as, still in relationship, and the other person is having power over rather than power with, it's kind of, you know, there's a point, and I think you're inviting us to have new language around those boundaries and naming them and saying, you know, what's happening right now is not my understanding of what a discussion is.
Yeah.
Can we agree on that? If we can't, then we're really not having a discussion, and I'm gonna need to stop.
Absolutely. Spot on. You know, because if we don't have words to describe what's happening, it's hard for us to unpack in the moment what we choose to and not to do. And so how can we come to some type of community agreement about what it is that we're about to undertake? And do we agree that this is a place where we're committed to staying in relationship or not? I mean, that's maybe one of the fundamental places. Is that a priority in our conversation? Because sometimes it may not be, and we need to get clarity on that. Really appreciate your process checks. Other thoughts? Just in general. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just don't understand the usefulness at all of the data. What is the point?
So we all come with personalities. So. So I invite you to do this because I just love this exercise, and this won't take much time at all, but if everybody will put their hands about shoulder width apart. Again, I promise, legal, moral, and ethical. Knit your fingers together, pull them apart, knit your fingers together, pull them apart, do it one more time, knit your fingers together. Every time you did that, did the same thumb end up on top?
Yes.
All right, guess what we're gonna do? Pull your hands apart, put the other thumb on top. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I get the wonderful view to see all of your faces going, okay, I can do this. Got it. We all have a go-to, and this is getting to your question. We have a preference. Some of us are conflict avoidant. Some of us love conflicts. We love to duke it out. We love the competition. It's in our soul. It's in our DNA. It's a part of our personality, actually. It's a personality trait. And so for folks who like to, whatever your conflict style is, relating to debates here specifically, we also have to make a choice and go, you know what? I may love to put this thumb on top. I may love to debate, but in this moment, what I need to do is I need to choose a different way to talk in order to be more effective. Now, it can also go the other way, and there may be times when there's a line in the sand and you are not willing to cross it. We say, look, this is my line in the sand and I have to defend this position. So it's not to say that any one of these ways of talking is wrong or evil or bad, but it's to say we have to be intentional about the right time and the right place. And we have to say, which thumb is it that I need to put on top? And what's my go-to? I know that my go-to is debate. I know that my go-to is dialogue. And now, is that the best way for me to impact this current moment that I'm in right now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about a city council meeting.
Yeah.
You can't discuss because there's too many people in the room
Mm-hmm.
and you have to choose a side sometimes.
I don't agree,
Okay.
but that's the city council meeting we were at, it was so divided, it felt like it didn't matter if we were there or not, and the decision regarding, and so to make more division in the world, no matter what the subject, I don't agree.
Our legal system is based on the debate framework, our judicial system.
Yes.
And so we have opportunities to think about how to do things differently,
Yeah.
right? So if we're not comfortable with where the world is in this moment, right? If we think about how we are living with one another, and we need to figure out how to be our best selves, how to be who we aspire to be, how do we create new systems and new processes so that we can invite new possibilities? Because we have systems and processes that have led us to where we are today. And we don't seem to be in a very good place. So if we want to be in a better place, that's what all of you are here for.
So, but there are several situations where debate is almost demanded. In other words, you're going to unify two school districts or you're not. You're going to extend the city boundaries or you're not.
Or the state boundaries.
Or so, I mean, it's, and you know, and sometimes you can move some of those things into discussion and sometimes you can't. But I think the starting point is often like in some of your examples, that we dealt with there, we were talking about affordable housing. Well, affordable housing is a wonderful subject for dialogue. Because there are all kinds of nuances, there are all kinds of, so even confining it to discussion is kind of limiting it in a way. But the parameters are set with whatever the situation is to a certain extent.
So here's what I'm curious about, is how do we create new containers, new spaces that are generative?
Yeah.
Places that generate the opportunity to think differently.
Yeah.
And then I would also encourage us to think about, I would also encourage us to think about the leadership of each of us. If we think about leadership in terms of being a collaborative, creative process for mutual benefit. Leadership is not about the position on some organizational chart where somebody gets a paycheck. That's a job, that's authority. That's a thing, but I would not define that as leadership. Leadership is our agency to say, I want to create a space where we each have agency to enter into it to create this different type of talking with one another. But it's a lot of work. It's a heavy lift. But the joy in that is that I think there are people that want to do that work together.
I mean, I was just going to say, it's sort of like connecting two people who are fundamentally different. How do you ask someone who's like, I don't know, left-handed to write with the right hand?
How can we value the incredible gifts that a left-handed person brings to the conversation? I happen to have twin sons and they're mirror twins. And if you know anything about that, one of them is left-handed, one of them is right-handed. So I've watched these two people grow up as opposites. One's extroverted, one's introverted. Sorry, I'm digressing here. But this idea of how do we learn to appreciate the people who are so dramatically different from us? And for me, I think I have a unique, I'll just digress here for a moment longer. I have this really unique position because I do have, in all honesty, my husband and we have identical twin sons that are married, meaning they have the exact same DNA, except when the eggs split, they are opposites. One's extroverted, one's introverted, one's decisive, one's adaptive, one's left-handed, one's right-handed, right? And so how do we see our common humanity, even when we are diametrically opposed? And that challenge is actually such a huge richness because they have the best relationship in the world. They are the closest to human beings I have ever observed as 25-year-old men. I mean, like, it's really wonky. So how can we aspire to find that common ground? I mean, we're not gonna have the same DNA as other people, right? But how do we find that common ground even with the people who are so incredibly opposite from us, to value the richness that they contribute to our lives and our community? And I think that's the really beautiful joy of your dialogue. When dialogue gets tough, if that resonates for you, go back to that and say, look, I'm having a hard time listening and valuing you, but I'm gonna think about how I value diversity and the richness that everybody brings to the conversation and weaves in the fabric. Okay. It's different than me. It is diametrically opposed. I'm having a hard time here. And I know what I really want and value in this life. I value being heard. I value being seen. I'm willing to do that with you, so you will do that with me. Yeah. And dialogue's tough. But I know you're gonna have a good time tomorrow in the exercises. So tomorrow is gonna be a great day. Again, I did not coordinate with anything that is gonna happen tomorrow. So if I've told you anything and they tell you something different, go with that.
How do you address when there are impactful power differences between the two people who are engaging in dialogue or discussion?
You named
So this is the beautiful thing about dialogue, because dialogue says we come to this conversation as human beings, which is not a power equilibrium that happens in discussion and debate. In discussion and debate, there's very clearly someone who is bigger in some way. They have more authority, they have a bigger presence, whatever it may be, and it dominates. In dialogue, because of the ground rules, there is a commitment to honor the humanity, no matter whether you're the CEO, the richest person, the most brilliant person, whatever it is, with the person who comes as the humble human being. Because that's what we're coming to the conversation with. That we're bringing each of our experiences as part of the human experience. It's not a dialogue when there are power differentials.
But you can't erase power differentials and their real impacts.
True, so
By setting ground rules, you can't erase like, if, let's say like my boss stole money from me.
Mhm.
And then I'm asked to have a dialogue about wage theft. You can't erase that they have the power to steal my wages from me and have a negative impact on my life because of the power they have that I don't have. How am I supposed to enter into that kind of, how am I supposed to feel like that could ever be equal footing?
So what I would hope is that I have not proposed that any of these ways of talking, plus many, many others, are any one best way. And that you should always, so I'm just gonna embrace, you should always use dialogue because it's the best thing in the world and it's the only answer to get us out of this mess we're in. I'm really, really, really not saying that. There are times when dialogue is absolutely not appropriate. So in that specific example that you're talking about, when someone has been harmed, that's a different kind of conversation where dialogue may not be appropriate by those two particular people, maybe by different people. But again, that's the intentionality that's necessary to be very clear about what does this moment, this space and this time call for? And how can I be clear in making my choice about the way that we're talking?
Yeah.
Because I think you really bring up a good example. Okay, all right, so I want to thank you all very, very much. I have overextended my time, but it has been very, very fun playing with all of you. I thank you very much. And I look forward to spending the rest of the weekend with you.